Hello, my name is Jim. Welcome to my booktube channel about books, reading, and stuff. This will be my September wrap up. In September, I finished 9 books. It was a good month. I had 4 5-star reads in September. Usually I have about 1 5-star read for every 5 books, but here I had 4 for 9, so this was good going. And the first book I finished was a 5-star read. This was The Perelin Decline by Pae Veo. Pae Veo is a booktuber, and his book about Simone in La Rochelle, who is released from a clinic and is suffering from memory loss, is a fantastic read. It's very philosophical. What is someone without their memory, without their identity, without their past? She gets back to her apartment and finds all these rocks, and she can't account for the rocks, and it's a fascinating story, and it gripped me from the start. Second book I finished was also a 5-star read, At Night, All Blood is Black by David Diop. It's a very bloody tale, a very visceral tale set in the First World War about 2 Senegalese soldiers, and there's Alpha and Mademba, and in the first chapter Mademba is killed with a bayonet and his guts spill out onto the battlefield, and he begs his friend Alpha to end his life, but Alpha can't do this, and when Mademba finally does die, Alpha is haunted by his inability to kill his friend, to put his friend out of his misery, and he turns a bit crazy, and he becomes this crazy guy that goes across into no man's land, takes one of the enemy, eviscerates them, and comes back to his trench with the hand of the enemy as a souvenir. And at first his comrades are cheering him on, but then they start to get worried. It's a fantastic tale. It won the International Booker Prize in 2021 and the Prix Goncourt de Lycéen. It's a fantastic tale. Third book I finished was The Myth of Sisyphus by Albert Camus. Very philosophical work, an absurdist work, philosophizing about what we can do if there's no God, and maybe suicide is the only solution. Then I read The Infiltrator by Peter R. Stone. This was the follow-up to Forager, which I really enjoyed. I wasn't so impressed with Infiltrator. It's post-apocalyptic YA fantasy, which is something I was thinking about writing when I was a teenager myself, but I'm much older now, and it's fun, but it's not great literature. And then probably the highlight of the month, if not the highlight for the year for me, was The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. And how do we make our mark on history when we can't leave a mark? This is Addie LaRue's problem. She made a Faustian pact with a spirit or a god from the ancient world in the early 18th century in France because she wanted to get out of the marriage, she wanted her freedom. She's given immortality and her youth, but in return nobody can remember her. And it's how she goes through 3 centuries with nobody remembering her. It's an incredible tale. I love the premise. I love V. Schwab's writing. Yeah, and this could be my best read of the year. I will see in December. Then I read Summer Hours at the Robbers Library by Sue Halpern. This was another good read. This is only a 4-star read, but it's about a librarian, Kit, and it's about a 15-year-old who steals a dictionary and is sentenced by a wise judge to spend the summer working in the library. The 15-year-old is Solstice, who's nicknamed Sunny, and her parents are alternatives, Willow and Steve, who don't believe in schooling, so she says she's homeschooled, no-schooled, but it's about her relationship with Kit, with the library, and with the other patrons of the library. It's an interesting read. Then I read The Brain Hunter by Matt Wall. Matt Wall is another booktuber. The Brain Hunter is this mad scientist who's collecting brains. He's killing people, taking their brains, collecting them in his satchel for his experiments. And this mad scientist, unlike other mad scientists, is a zombie. It's a very short read. It's a fun read if you're into zombies and mad scientists. Then I read A Midsummer Night's Dream by William Shakespeare. I'd never read a comedy by William Shakespeare before. I'd read some histories and tragedies. This was, you probably know the tale, and it's about these Athenians in a wood who have their eyes, they apply drops to their eyes so that when they awake they fall in love with who they see or what they see, and it's very amusing. It's very I might need to read it again. Before I read it, I watched a modern adaptation on YouTube, and then I watched another adaptation on YouTube by the Iowa students, and both were interesting. This helped me understand what was going on in the play. It's a very silly play, but it's a lot of fun, and we got characters like Puck and Bottom and Oberon, as well as these Athenians who are in love, and it's a lot of shenanigans. And the final book I read was this one. I'll put a copy up here because filming on my tablet puts everything the wrong way around. The Underground Railroad by Colson and Whitehead, and this also was a 5-star read. The Underground Railroad in history wasn't a real railroad, but in this book it's imagined as a real underground railroad. And we follow Cora, who's a slave in Georgia, where slaves are exploited, they're terribly abused and beaten and whipped and killed, and she escapes with Caesar on the Underground Railroad, first going to South Carolina, which seems very progressive, but it's not so progressive because here they experiment on African Americans, they sterilize them, they abort their babies. It's not as progressive as it seems. And she heads to North Carolina, where there's a genocide going on of African Americans, and then it goes to other states like Tennessee and Indiana. It's a difficult read at times. It's a fantastic read because it imagines a real railroad with tunnels and tracks and things, and it's a book that's going to stay with me a long time. So those were my reads which I finished. One book I didn't finish was this. Again, I'll put up the right way round. This is The Black Book by Orhan Pamuk. I got to page 96 and I couldn't really get into the story. It's about this man who's lost his wife and he's searching for her. He thinks she might be with an editor who was her ex-boyfriend, and I just couldn't get into it. I do like Orhan Pamuk. I really loved his book Istanbul. I loved My Name is Red, but The Black Book didn't work for me. I might pick it up again, so it might not be DNF for all time, but this was a DNF for me. That was my reading for September. It was a good month. I am now ahead of the game on my Goodreads target. Not that it really matters to anyone apart from myself. I've read 58 of the 72 books I intend to read. Okay, if you enjoyed this video, you can like and subscribe below, and I will see you on the next video. Good night.